Hey there, deep dive fans.
Yeah.
Today we're tackling something that I know can be a real pain point, contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, how Oracle is hopefully making life easier by integrating their CPQ system with their enterprise contracts platform.
That's right. We're diving into excerpts from their integration guide, a document aimed at those already familiar with CPQ.
Okay.
You know, the folks who live and breathe sales configurations, pricing, quotes, but maybe haven't had the pleasure of a fully integrated contract system.
Okay, so it's like taking CPQ to the next level. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you remind us why this integration is such a big deal?
Imagine this. Your sales team is on fire, closing deals left and right. But then things come to a screeching halt because contracts are stuck in legal limbo. This integration is like building a bridge between those two worlds. CPQ handles the initial sales excitement, but contracts, they often have a life of their own, long after the deal is done.
So less manual handoffs, fewer chances for someone to mistype a date, and everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
That's music to my ears and probably to the ears of anyone who's ever chased down a signature. But hold on, this guide is from February 2022. That feels like a lifetime ago in tech years.
You're absolutely right to be cautious about dates, and it highlights why understanding versioning is so crucial. Now, this document does specify that it covers releases 18A and later, meaning it should still hold up.
Okay.
But you're right, a savvy user always checks for the latest documentation just in case Oracle decided to revamp everything.
Duly noted. So let's assume, for the sake of this deep dive, that we're all on the latest and greatest versions. How does this integration actually work within Oracle CPQ? Paint us a picture.
Think of it like a perfectly choreographed dance.
Okay.
First, you've got to introduce the dancers, right? In this case, it's about establishing a connection between CPQ and enterprise contracts through something called the CPQ Integration Center. It's essentially a hub where you can manage connections between different systems within the Oracle world.
Got it. So no more awkward introductions at this party. The systems know how to find each other on the dance floor.
Precisely. And once they're acquainted, you create special attributes within CPQ designed to hold contract information. Think of these like designated spots on the dance floor where contract details belong, keeping things organized and flowing smoothly.
So far, so good. But we're still talking about systems and data. What about the actual contracts? The documents with all the legal jargon that make everyone nervous.
Ah, that's where the real magic happens and where the analogy gets really interesting. The guide highlights two key integrations: create contract and preview contract. Imagine these as the systems exchanging information and agreeing on the steps of the dance. With create contract, you're sending those carefully crafted transaction details from CPQ over to enterprise contracts.
So they're whispering sweet nothings, but in contract form.
Exactly. And based on predefined rules you've set up within enterprise contracts, the system then generates the formal terms and conditions like a legal wizard working behind the scenes. And here's the key. Crucial contract attributes like the unique ID get sent back to CPQ, so both systems are totally in sync.
Okay, now that's what I call efficiency. No more manually transferring data, no more copy-paste nightmares. I'm already feeling less stressed.
Yeah.
But it gets better, right? Tell me there's more.
There's always more. The preview contract integration is like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain. With this, you can actually fetch that generated contract document directly from enterprise contracts within CPQ.
Wait, hold on. So I'm picturing this. I'm in CPQ, I've got my deal all set, and I can just summon the contract right there. No more jumping through oops, emailing different departments.
You got it. And you can grab it in various formats too. Your classic, PDF, HTML, whatever's easiest. It can even be automatically displayed. They've really tried to make it user-friendly.
Okay, you're making me excited about contracts, and that's not something I say every day.
Yeah.
But let's get down to brass tacks. How does an admin actually use these integrations? Is it all automated magic, or is there still some human intervention required?
That's a great question, and it brings us to the heart of what this guide is trying to teach. While there is huge automation potential here, it's not totally hands-off yet. The guide goes deep on creating what they call modify actions within CPQ.
Modify actions. That sounds a little technical. Can you break that down for us?
Of course. Think of these modify actions as specific instructions or triggers you set up to tell the integration when and how to do its thing. It's like assigning specific dance moves to each part of the integration, making sure everything flows smoothly from one step to the next.
So I'm picturing an admin. meticulously choreographing this whole intricate contract dance step by step, and they have a lot of control over the process.
You're getting it. The admin gets to decide exactly when those integrations spring into action during the contract process. And here's where it gets really powerful. These modify actions, they can actually be triggered through REST APIs.
Now you're just showing off the technical terms, but
Yeah.
seriously, what does that mean for someone who might not be a coding whiz?
It opens up a whole new level of flexibility and automation for those who are comfortable with a bit of coding. We're talking about the ability to really fine-tune the integration and connect it to other systems. But even without that deep technical knowledge, the core functionality is still incredibly powerful.
Okay, so we've got our systems doing the tango, gracefully handing off data, and we can even sneak a peek at the finished contract without breaking a sweat. But let's zoom out for a second. We've been in the weeds of how this integration works. What does it actually mean for our listener, the one who's dealing with contracts day in and day out?
You're right, it's not just about the tech, it's about what that tech can do for your business. And frankly, this integration has the potential to be a game changer.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of game are we talking about here?
Let's start with the obvious, speed. Think about how much time your teams currently spend creating, reviewing, and chasing down contracts. It's like a never-ending relay race, right?
Tell me about it. Don't even get me started on version control nightmares.
Exactly. But with this integration, you're essentially hitting the fast forward button on your sales cycle. No more waiting for contracts to be manually generated and shuffled between departments. Deals close faster, everyone's happy.
All right, time is money, so that's a big one. What else?
Well, a faster, smoother process naturally leads to a better experience for your customers, right? They're not left in limbo wondering when that contract is going to materialize. It's all very transparent and efficient, which builds trust and goodwill.
Happy customers, happy business. But I know there's always a but. What's the catch? Is there something our listener needs to watch out for?
No catch, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the importance of planning. This guide does a great job of laying out the technical how-to, but successfully implementing this integration requires some serious thought about your unique business needs and processes.
So it's like baking a cake. You can have all the best ingredients, but without a good recipe, it's going to be a disaster.
Perfect analogy. Before you even think about configurations and integrations, you need to ask yourself some key questions. What kind of contracts are we dealing with? What data absolutely has to flow between systems? How do our approval processes actually work? And can we streamline them?
Right, because one size doesn't fit all. It's not just about connecting the systems. It's about connecting them in a way that makes sense for your specific contract workflow.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of change management. Anytime you introduce a new system or process, there's going to be a learning curve. Having a solid plan for training and support is crucial to ensure a smooth transition.
Solid advice. Now, we've talked a lot about the benefits here. Faster sales cycles, happier customers. But there's one more piece of the puzzle I'm particularly interested in. What about risk? Can this integration actually help mitigate legal risk?
Absolutely. Think about it. One of the biggest risks with contracts is good old-fashioned human error. Someone forgets to include a key clause, a date is off by a digit. You know the drill.
Oh, I've been there. It's not pretty.
Right. But by automating these processes and ensuring data accuracy, this integration can drastically reduce the likelihood of those costly mistakes.
That's music to any legal team's ears. Less room for human error, more consistency and accuracy. It sounds like a recipe for fewer headaches all around.
Precisely. And beyond that, having a centralized repository for all your contracts, which this integration enables, makes it far easier to track obligations, ensure compliance, and even identify potential issues before they become major problems.
Okay, I'm convinced. This integration has a lot to offer businesses willing to put in the planning and effort. But let's be honest, not everyone is using Oracle. Is this just a sales pitch for one specific vendor?
That's a fair point, and it's important to remember that while we're focusing on Oracle in this deep dive, the underlying principles apply more broadly. This idea of integrating systems to streamline contract management. It's not unique to any one company.
Okay, so it's less about the brand names and more about the philosophy.
Exactly. Regardless of your tech stack, the key is to think strategically about your contract lifecycle as a whole. Where are the bottlenecks? What processes are needlessly manual? Where are the opportunities to improve visibility and collaboration?
These are questions every business should be asking, regardless of their industry or size. We're talking about a fundamental shift in mindset, not just a software upgrade.
You're spot on. It's about moving away from that old school approach where contracts are seen as a necessary evil, a mountain of paperwork that just slows everything down.
Right.
Instead, we're moving towards a world where contracts are viewed as strategic assets, tools that can actually drive business growth.
Now, that's a refreshing way to think about contracts. So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive into Oracle's world, what's the one big takeaway we want them to walk away with?
It's simple. Never underestimate the power of integration. And I don't just mean connecting systems for the sake of it.
Right.
I'm talking about taking a holistic view, understanding how those connections can make your entire business hum. We're talking about working smarter, faster, and with less risk.
Words to live by. All right, my fellow deep divers, that wraps up our exploration of Oracle CPQ and enterprise contracts integration. We've covered the why, the how, and most importantly, the what's in it for you. Remember, keep those brains engaged and those contract processes humming. Until next time.